quiet of a summer evening in 1996, the skies above Long Island erupted into a fiery inferno, marking a tragedy that shook the world. TWA Flight 800, a symbol of modern air travel's reliability and safety, suddenly became a harrowing testament to the fragility of human existence. As investigators raced to unravel the mystery behind the doomed flight, they unearthed a web of intrigue, controversy, and unanswered questions that would linger for decades. Join us on a riveting journey into the heart of one of aviation's most perplexing mysteries, where truth collides with speculation and the search for closure takes flight amidst the chaos. This is the untold story of TWA Flight 800, a tale that transcends the boundaries of time and space, captivating audiences with its enigma and tragedy. In the late afternoon of July 17, 1996, at John F. Kennedy International Airport, TWA Flight 800 underwent meticulous preparations for its journey from the USA to Rome, Italy, with a stopover in Paris at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Ground crews diligently inspected the aircraft, luggage was loaded, and flight attendants conducted final safety checks. The aircraft bearing registration N93119, a Boeing 747-131, rolled off the Boeing production line in July 1971. Originally destined for Eastern Airlines, the order was later canceled, leading to the plane's purchase by Trans World Airlines, TWA, as a new aircraft. With a history of 16,869 flights and 93,303 hours of operation, the Boeing 747-131 was equipped with 4 Pratt & Whitney JT9D-7AH turbofan engines. On the specific date of the incident, the aircraft took off from Elinikon International Airport in Athens, Greece, operating as TWA Flight 881, and landed at John F. Kennedy International Airport, JFK, around 4:38 p.m. John F. Kennedy International Airport serves as a vital gateway connecting the United States to the world. And on July 17, 1996, it was a bustling hub of activity as TWA Flight 800 prepared to embark on its journey to Rome, Italy, with a stopover at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport. This route holds immense importance for tourism, fostering cultural exchange and economic ties between the United States and Italy. The crew of TWA Flight 800 was under the experienced leadership of Captain Ralph G. Kevorkian, 58, boasting 31 years with TWA and 9 years with the U.S. Air Force, accumulating a remarkable 18,700 flight hours, including 5,400 on the Boeing 747. Assisting him was Captain and Check Airman Stephen E. Snyder, 57, a veteran of 32 years with TWA, amassing 17,200 flight hours, including 4,700 on the Boeing 747. Joining them was flight engineer and check airman Richard G. Campbell, Jr., 63, with 30 years at TWA and 12 years in the U.S. Air Force, logging 18,500 flight hours, including 3,800 on the Boeing 747. Additionally, 25-year-old flight engineer trainee Oliver Crick, a former business pilot with 2,500 flight hours, including 30 on the Boeing 747, was part of the team. This flight served as a training opportunity for Kevorkian, occupying the captain's seat, while Snyder monitored from the first officer's seat. Campbell observed from the cockpit jump seat, while Crick, in his 6th leg of initial operating experience training, was monitored by Campbell from the flight engineer's seat. Among the 212 passengers aboard TWA Flight 800 were individuals spanning various professions and backgrounds, each with their own story and purpose for travel. Notable among them were Michel Breistrauff, a renowned French ice hockey player, Marcel Dadi, a celebrated French guitarist, and David Hogan, an esteemed American composer. Also among the passengers was Jed Johnson, recognized as Andy Warhol's partner for 12 years, as well as an accomplished interior designer and director. Pam Lichtner, a former TWA flight attendant turned American crime victims' rights advocate, was also on board. The flight carried notable figures from the world of arts and media, including Rico Pullman, a German fashion photographer, and Jack O'Hara, the executive producer of ABC Sports, along with his wife and daughter, heading to France for what was to be his final assignment for the network after being let go the previous week. The flight faced an unexpected delay when a passenger checked in luggage but failed to appear for boarding. As airport staff worked to locate the missing individual, frustration grew among waiting passengers. Since the harrowing events of the Lockerbie disaster in 1988, where a bomb hidden in luggage tore apart a Pan Am 747 mid-flight, aviation security measures across the United States and the world have been markedly intensified. The heightened vigilance was starkly evident in the meticulous procedures surrounding passenger checks and luggage inspections, as exemplified by the crew of TWA Flight 800, who diligently searched for a missing passenger before departure. John F. Kennedy International Airport, a bustling nexus of global travel, remained under constant scrutiny as a potential target for terrorist activities. Public attention was particularly fixated on notorious figures like Ramzi Youssef, whose trial for orchestrating the 1993 World Trade Center bombing loomed large in federal court in New York. Youssef's sinister exploits, including his attempt to bring down Philippine Airlines Flight 434 with a homemade bomb, served as a chilling reminder of the ever-present threat posed by terrorism to aviation security worldwide. As the scorching sun beat down on John F. Kennedy International Airport, TWA Flight 800 found itself caught in a sweltering delay of more than an hour. With passengers eagerly awaiting departure in the oppressive heat, the plane's crew sprang into action, cranking the air conditioning to its maximum capacity in a desperate bid to provide relief. However, unbeknownst to those on board, the seemingly innocuous act of cooling the cabin unwittingly transformed the aircraft into a potential time bomb. The intense heat, coupled with the presence of Jet A fuel in the plane's tanks, created a perilous combination. At high temperatures, Jet A fuel vaporizes more readily, increasing the risk of ignition and turning the aircraft into a volatile inferno waiting to ignite. Amidst the backdrop of a prolonged delay and heightened tension, TWA Flight 800 finally received clearance for departure at 8:02 p.m. After enduring over an hour of uncertainty and discomfort, passengers breathed a collective sigh of relief as the aircraft taxied towards the runway, its engines humming with anticipation. The crew, having navigated through the challenges of the delay, remained steadfast in their commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of all on board. With engine number 3 ignited at 8:14 p.m., TWA Flight 800 proceeded smoothly with taxi and takeoff. The aircraft glided along the runway without incident, setting the stage for what was anticipated to be an uneventful journey ahead. TWA 800 was subsequently directed to adjust its heading multiple times and gradually ascend to reach its planned cruising altitude. The weather conditions in the vicinity were characterized by gentle winds and scattered clouds, with the illumination transitioning into dusk. Just 12 minutes after takeoff, tragedy struck as TWA Flight 800 was engulfed in a catastrophic explosion. The aircraft's final radio transmission occurred at 8:30 p.m. when the flight crew received instructions from Boston Center to ascend to 15,000 feet, 4,600 Mallard, a routine communication that went smoothly. However, just moments later, at 8:12 p.m., the last recorded radar transponder return from the airplane was captured by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, radar site at Trevose, Pennsylvania, marking the abrupt end of the flight's trajectory. 38 seconds later, Captain David McLean of Eastwind Airlines Flight 507, operating Boeing 737-200 N221 US, which had recently faced its own near-crash incident, relayed a chilling observation to Boston ARTCC. He reported witnessing an explosion ahead of his aircraft, describing it as occurring at approximately 16,000 feet, 4,900 Mallard, and plunging into the water. Shortly thereafter, numerous air traffic control facilities in the New York Long Island area received similar reports from pilots in the vicinity. Eyewitnesses on the ground described seeing or hearing explosions, accompanied by a massive fireball or multiple fireballs over the ocean, and observed debris, some of which was aflame, descending into the water. Within minutes of the initial impact, various civilian, military, and police vessels arrived at the crash site, initiating a search for survivors. Sadly, none were found, making the tragedy of TWA Flight 800 the second deadliest aircraft accident in United States history up to that point. The investigation into the crash of TWA Flight 800 was jointly conducted by the FBI and the NTSB to determine the cause of the tragedy. Following incidents like the crash of TWA Flight 800, a myriad of theories inevitably emerge as investigators seek to unravel the truth behind the tragedy. Among the speculative conjectures are suspicions of terrorism, fueled by the volatile geopolitical landscape and previous acts of aviation sabotage. Additionally, the possibility of an accidental missile launch by the U.S. Navy looms large in the discourse, given the proximity of military exercises and naval operations to the crash site. 16 months later, the JTTF announced the closure of its active investigation, stating that no evidence of a criminal act had been found. Meanwhile, the NTSB's extensive 4-year investigation culminated in the approval of the aircraft accident report on August 23, 2000. This marked the end of what was deemed the most extensive, complex, and costly air disaster investigation in U.S. history up to that point. The report concluded that the probable cause of the accident was the explosion of flammable fuel vapors in the center fuel tank, with a likely ignition source being a short circuit. Issues with the aircraft's wiring were identified, including evidence of arcing in the fuel quantity indication system, FQIS, wiring that enters the tank. The malfunctioning of the FQIS on Flight 800 was noted, with the captain reporting crazy readings from the system approximately 2 minutes and 30 seconds before the explosion. Subsequently, new requirements were established for aircraft to prevent future fuel tank explosions. After the TWA 800 accident, the FAA issued over 70 directives and modifications regarding flight safety to eliminate potential sources of ignition and improve the installation of electrical wiring in fuel tanks. Boeing also complied with the FAA directives and installed a system called the inert gas system inside the fuel tanks. This system automatically pumps nitrogen into the fuel tanks to prevent fuel from igniting. The NTSB then decided to retain the reconstructed fuselage of TWA 800 for future training purposes. They transferred it to a training center in Ashburn, Virginia. The NTSB also committed to the families of the accident victims that they would never display the fuselage of TWA 800 publicly again if it was no longer used. Therefore, after over 20 years in storage in Virginia, with the warehouse lease nearing expiration, the NTSB destroyed the remaining portion of TWA 800 to uphold their promise to the families of the victims.